Good Friday morning out there to everybody. Welcome into the Auburn Blitz podcast. Glad that you joined us out there, wherever it is that you're tuning us in, and glad to have my guy Jason Caldwell with me to start off here and hang with me here on this Friday. His faith is off today, and Jason, always good to see you, my man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell everybody how they can get in touch with you and how they can follow everything that you guys do, because y'all do such a great job over there at Auburn Undercover.
Yeah, like I said, check us out, auburnundercover.com, part of the 24/7 network, and have a loaded weekend. We got a lot going on. Baseball's in Texas. I'll be covering that from home this weekend. I'm not going out to Texas this weekend, but Nathan King will be on the road this morning, Friday morning, heading to Lexington to cover Auburn basketball. So he'll be in the house at Rupp Arena for that game tomorrow. Softball going on this weekend, always football and football recruiting as well. So you can find all of it there at auburnundercover.com.
Yeah, I got a lot going on, and I apologize to everybody for a little bit of raspiness in my voice, but 3 days of nonstop basketball at Legacy Arena with the HSA network will put a little bit of a rasp in your voice, but saw some good basketball there. Jason also saw some blowouts, and of course today and tomorrow they'll finish up with state championship games. And yeah, been some really, really good games up there. And I've just got to start with Hoover real quick before we dive into Auburn stuff. That Hoover boys team, it may be the most dominant. Now, Huntsville's really good too, and they met in the regional final, and you and I talked about that was a shame that they didn't get a chance to play on that big stage. But the Hoover boys, just a tremendous team that I don't think I've ever seen a team like this in the state.
Yeah, I think back to a couple. Obviously, the John Carroll team was the last one that was undefeated, and that was Ronald Steele and DeMar Carroll, two guys that went on to play pretty good. I think back to a couple other teams. I think back to, honestly, one of them that I remember really well is the Jeff Davis team. From the early to mid '90s. Brian Williams.
Brian Williams. Yep.
You had a couple of guys that played college basketball too. You had that couple of 6'5" lefties that could really play. They were really athletic. And then West End, I think it's West End team that was in the '90s as well, Birmingham, that was really good. That had some guys that went on to play at UAB and some other spots. And so those are the teams that I think about in this, in the last 25 or 30 years that come to mind. But this Hoover team, you have size, Dwayne Brown at Tennessee signee, Salim London, UAB signee, another big that's 6'9", 6'10" that can play. I mean, it's a really good basketball team.
Yeah, just a matchup problem for most everybody. Huntsville played them close, and I think Huntsville had only lost one basketball game, and they lost 63-60 in that game. So, again, it's always a fun tournament. If you got an opportunity, if you're watching out there, to make it up to Birmingham and catch some games, even if you don't have a dog in the fight. And, of course, Ace Austin last night. I know she's going to Alabama, but what an unbelievable career for her at Spring Garden. And I had a chance to go up and see her a few weeks ago, spend some time with her and Coach Austin, her dad. And boy, there's Spring Garden is a blip on the radar, and they've been enjoying a lot of success in that little small town and that school. And she's just an awesome person off the court. Had a good time talking to her, but man, she put up some numbers, didn't she, Jason?
She did. When you start looking at careers in Alabama basketball, you think about this has been a state that we've seen some really individual talents come through, and she's kind of the latest one of those. I mean, you think about the Strain sisters, obviously, and what they were able to do. Think back to others. I mean, when I was in high school, I just went blank on Tanya Tice.
Tanya Tice, yep,
the first original one of those. And so there's been a bunch that have come through and had really, really, really long and good high school careers. And Ace Austin's obviously the next one of those is now going to get a chance to go on and play at the collegiate level.
All right, Jason, let's move on into Auburn and Kentucky. Auburn and Kentucky coming up. Before we dive into that, I'll just let you give your thoughts on the game on Wednesday night. I thought Auburn, again, everybody that was concerned that Auburn had peaked, I think kind of taking a step back now and got off to a blazing start. Really one of the better performances in Neville Arena in a while from start to finish, offensively and defensively. Ole Miss is a great team, and they've had a good year, and it's kind of been up and down, but it's definitely a team, if you're not on your A game, that can beat you. And Auburn just came out 7 of 7, just blazing the nets, and just ran away with this thing in the second half.
Yeah, made shots, and that's a big deal. I think you can see Janai Broom's healthier. That's a much different Auburn team with a healthy Janai Broom, and honestly, they played pretty much the entire SEC schedule without a healthy Broom. I mean, he's back, but I mean that was South Carolina. That was really early in the process,
right.
And it's taken a toll on them, and now he's back healthy. But you're right, because I mentioned this, I wrote it last week. That there probably weren't 4 or 5 games in league play where I felt like, yeah, they played really well. Most of them I went, yeah, they played okay, but they still won. And that's the difference. When you're still able to win those games, when you go, yeah, we played okay, that shows you how good of a basketball team you have. Now, as we know, nothing's guaranteed, because once you get past the regular season, then one bad night ends it. And so sometimes it's just luck of the draw. Can you stay hot? Are you fortunate with your matchups? All those things that come into play. But this is an Auburn basketball team that is much more prepared to play any style that anybody has. And we've seen that, and we saw it. Ole Miss says, okay, we're gonna do some things, and Auburn said, okay, well, if we're going to have open shots, we're going to knock them down, and we're going to make you pay. And so I think it was a really big game from a confidence standpoint. Not that this team lacks confidence, but a confidence standpoint for Miles Kelly and Chad Baker-Mazar and those guys to see shots falling from the perimeter. That's big, because you're going to have to go score Saturday at Kentucky. Not a great Kentucky team, but it's still a Kentucky team that it's kind of like playing Alabama to a smaller scale. If they make 6-7 threes early, then you're going to be in for a shootout the rest of the way.
Yeah, I think one point that I wanted to make about Auburn is they can play bad offensively and still win. They've done that this year, and they've proven that. But when this team is hitting shots, Jason, it is near impossible to beat this team. I mean, you can forget it.
Yeah, I mean, I think and that you could say that a lot about a lot of teams.
Sure,
but you look at Alabama and you go, Alabama scored 100 and some points and lost. That's the difference. Now, Alabama has picked up their defense since about the first 10 minutes of that Kentucky game. The last, I don't say 50, 60 minutes they played have been much better defensively.
Right.
But that's what Auburn does on a consistent basis. Now, some teams are just going to score because that's what they do. Kentucky's probably one of those. They're probably going to score some points Saturday. But you're right. The difference is that you can win those games, and it doesn't have to be, well, we're going to have to go out and score folks. That's a good position to be in. And so I do think with the health of Janai Broom getting better, that it helps you defensively as well, because now you had 4 blocks the other night. You have the rim protection back a little bit from him. And so you add that back into the equation, his ability to now, hey, catch the ball on the perimeter and make some dribbles and do things. It opens up the floor for them.
That's the thing I've noticed really in the Georgia game, and then now this game against Ole Miss, that he looks back almost 100% if he's not 100%. And he is a difference player. I mean, you saw the lift off the floor, the explosion. We weren't seeing that because he was still nursing that ankle. And now you see a healthy Janai Broom that's confident that he can get up, and, had several dunks, and the offense ran through him. I know he's 1 rebound shy of another double-double, but just he's going to give you that. He's the constant. But if Auburn's guards, Miles Kelly, Todd Pettiford, Denver Jones are executing and they're scoring, makes this team really tough. One more takeaway from the game, Ja'Kai Howard got in and made a couple shots. I know a lot of Auburn people want to see him in the game. Was that maybe a preview of more minutes for Ja'Kai Howard coming down the stretch?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll see. The hard thing to do is the later in the year, normally you shorten your bench.
Right.
And especially as you start to get into postseason play, because you have more time. But he's an athletic freak, and we've seen him shot continue to improve. He knocked down a couple of those threes and looked really good doing it.
Good looking shots.
He is from a talent standpoint. There's nobody on this roster that's as talented as Ja'Kai Howard, in my opinion, in terms of just size,
raw talent.
Yeah, I mean, like him and Fahad would be the two guys, to be quite honest, the two freshmen. Can you find a way to get him into the mix where it's 4 or 5 minutes, a half, where he becomes that next guy and gives you a spark off the bench? Maybe you can get back to that. I think it all depends on Ja'Kai and how he continues to handle things. And I think it's obviously, if he's back on the court, even in that situation, it means that he's been doing the things they want him to do.
I know you can't look into a crystal ball anymore in any sport. Would love for Ja'Kai Howard to stay at Auburn. I know the fans and social media, a lot of people don't think he'd be back, but that's all speculation. I think it's we don't know what goes on behind closed doors and conversations with coaches and players. And, obviously this team's going to look a lot different next year. And he would definitely have a bigger role, much bigger role in next year's team. So it just really determines or comes down to whether Ja'Kai Howard wants to stay at Auburn and be part of this program or decides he wants to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I think the first part of it is, yeah, you're right. We have no idea. We don't know.
Yeah.
The guys that – I mean, here's the thing. We're getting ready for spring football that starts March 25th, and we don't know what might happen, who might leave after spring football, and much less what happens next year on the basketball roster. I do think this. I think Ja'Kai Howard would be the best thing to ever happen for him if he came back for a second year.
I totally agree.
And bought in, same system. And, these guys now, and it's not just Ja'Kai, it's a lot of college basketball players. They go to, a high school as a sophomore, a different place as a junior, a different place as a senior. Then you get to a place as a freshman, you go, well, I'm not playing as much. You go somewhere else. Part of development is finding yourself in a system, working on your game, improving. It's not searching for, hey, what's the right? Well, sometimes the right fit is because you need to fit into it, and that's lost now a little bit. And so, I hope he's back because I think it would really benefit him. Obviously, from our Auburn perspective, it would, but I think more important for him. I think it's sometimes guys need to learn, hey, I need to improve. I need to do this and this, and the only way to do that is to stick it out and develop and buy in and do all those things. And I think he's done a better job of doing that maybe than people realize. But it's just tough when you've always kind of been the guy and kind of jump into this situation. So hopefully he'll be back. You're right. Very different roster. Will Denver Jones be back? Will Chad Baker-Mazar be back? Will Chaney Johnson be back? We know that there's going to be at least a couple of transfer big guys that aren't on the roster right now. They're going to have to go get guys like that. That's the one thing we do know. The rest of it we'll see depending on who returns.
Justin with some comments and questions. Jason, he says 1988. Yeah, that's the date we're looking at as we head into tomorrow. Want to try to break that curse that we've had at Rupp Arena. What is the toughest sport in your opinion? He said SEC. I mean, we talk about this all the time. Everything's brutal. I mean, every sport in this league is just absolutely brutal. Football needs no promotion. Basketball, I mean, look at the amount of teams in the top 25. I'm going to say baseball maybe or softball maybe is the toughest. And I know that's kind of crazy, but that's just my opinion. What's yours?
Yeah, I think baseball and softball are the most difficult because of the numbers of teams that are really good. Football's better, but the bottom half, you go,
yeah, right.
It's still got to get there. And then you go the bottom half of basketball, and you look at bottom half of basketball, and it's okay, but South Carolina's a 1-win team, and that it's much better. Basketball is much deeper, the best league we've ever seen in the Southeastern Conference. But when you start talking about, especially baseball, to me, softball, there's still a clear divide between 2 or 3 programs.
Right.
And then the next level, they're all good. But baseball, you look at it and you go, Man, we saw Ole Miss win a national championship a few years ago, and basically one game away from not even getting into the NCAA.
Really out of the blue.
Yeah,
Really out of the blue.
You know, we've seen Auburn make a couple of College World Series, and you kind of come on. I think baseball, in terms of depth, the bottom of the league, and those teams being able to go right now, other than Missouri, I think you look at the other 15 teams in this league and go, I could see a path for that team making it to the College World Series. That's crazy, but I think that's why, for me, baseball is a little bit different. I don't think you're there in softball. Softball's the top's probably better when you're talking about Texas,
Right.
Oklahoma, Florida, LSU. The top's probably better in softball than baseball because there's more competition across the country. But I think in terms of depth, baseball is probably the league.
All right, we're going to dive into this Kentucky game, but first, real quick, Jason, I'm going to hit some of our partners here on the program. Sense of Green, for air that's cool and clean. They're the carrier experts here in the state of Alabama, and Carrier, proud supporters of Auburn Athletics and the Auburn Blitz podcast. Scout Program Management in Birmingham, Alabama, a full-service construction management firm. Really great people. If you're in the market for a new school or renovation on your school, that's what they specialize in. They'll take you from the start to the finish of that project. And Bunkers in downtown Auburn on West Glen. What a cool place to go hang out. If you can't get tickets inside Neville Arena, or you can't get tickets to games, or you want to go watch the Kentucky game in a cool place, Bunkers, great food, great bar. Can go play some simulated golf. Jason and I both love to play golf, and all this simulated golf that's going on now, this new league. What do you think about that league, Jason, real quick? Have you had a chance to watch any of that?
A little bit. It's
different.
Yeah, it is.
It's different.
It's hard. I think it's one of those things where if I was playing it, I'd probably be having fun with it. It's
right.
just not a TV sport for me. And so,
absolutely.
I mean, yeah. But here's the thing. I understand it because, I would say probably, younger than me has been the video game age. We had video games for me growing up, but it just wasn't, my thing.
Right.
Younger than me to now, they've grown up with video games type things. And so I think for them, it probably has more of an appeal than it does for me.
Yeah. Virtual stuff and, playing music while you're playing and, just fans and they're chanting and, golf's always don't say anything. Everybody's quiet. Now it's an environment where fans can get up and rip and roar. And so it kind of plays into to this generation, but you're right. But it is kind of neat to watch it on TV a little bit. All right, let's get into Auburn, Kentucky, going on the road. This game at noon tomorrow. Jason, just kind of your early initial thoughts on this. And you're right. Kentucky can either blister the nets. It kind of reminded me of that first half of Duke when we played them. The kid comes in, hits 18. And really doesn't do anything else. But it was enough to make a difference in the game. And Kentucky's got some players that if they get hot outside from three, they can make life difficult for you.
Yeah, no, they can shoot the basketball. Physical guard play, not really physical on the interior. Now, they got some longer guys, but I think of Otega Owe. We saw another night take over the Oklahoma game. He's not much of an outside shooter. But he's a guy that's going to get to the free throw line a bunch and penetrate and get to the basket. I think that's probably the one thing you look at and go, foul trouble. That's probably the one thing for every team. But you look at for Auburn and going, man, if Broom or Dillon were to get in foul trouble, then all of a sudden it can impact you some. And he's a guy that, he's going to get to the basket. He shot 143 free throws. Amari Williams has shot 130. So this team goes to the free throw line a bunch. Amari Williams is kind of their big. But he'll step out, and handle the ball, and he kind of looks at himself as like a point forward. But Jackson Robinson is back, but did not look very good the other night from a physical standpoint. We'll see what he's able to do. Lamont Butler is back as well. So those guards are kind of getting back healthier a little bit. But the number for me, and I'm kind of doing a little preview thing, the number is 289. That's the number. That is Kentucky's scoring defense. They're 289th in scoring defense. They give up 76.6 points per game.
That's why they're 17-9.
And that's it with a really good offense. And so
Right.
you start talking about that going
19-9, excuse me.
Yeah. What happens to teams like that? And it becomes really difficult because all of a sudden, if you don't make every shot, then you're really in trouble. And, Auburn's, scoring defense is not as good as it has been in the past. Auburn's 68 points a game, but you're still almost 10. That's 8.5, 9 points difference.
Right. That's a big deal in a basketball game.
Big deal in basketball. And so that's the key for me. Talk to some folks and look, Kentucky's going to score, but they don't see any way that Auburn is going to get slowed down by this Kentucky defense. And if you let Auburn score and you let them get on the backboards and you let them kind of set up the defense and you don't get transition buckets offensively, because when you score and have to get the ball out of the net, then you're not getting transition threes, those kind of things. Then it becomes really difficult to beat Auburn.
I think it's been more mental for our program. We've taken some really good teams up there, and they've taken it to us. But the difference is we've taken good teams up there, but Kentucky's been Kentucky.
Yeah.
This is not, like you said to start, not the typical Kentucky team you're going to face in Rupp. Yes, they are a dangerous team, and will that environment be hyped up? Absolutely. You heard Coach Pearl talk about it. He said, it's the biggest place in the league. It takes some getting adjusted to, getting in there and trying to figure out things. But, I think the best thing for Auburn to do is to play within itself, do the things that they've done all season, and they played in tough environments. And I think at the end of the day, after the first 5 minutes or so of any game, the level of play, the level of talent takes over at that point. And that's why you see teams get off to hot starts. I know Florida wasn't able to finish the comeback against Georgia, and Georgia was able to win that game. Thank goodness. That helped Auburn out tremendously. But you saw Florida was able to work their way all the way back and take a lead right before the last minute of the game. And even if you dig yourself a hole, if you're a better team, you can work your way back into the game. So, but if Auburn can get off to a great start like they did the other night against Ole Miss, it's going to make life really tough on Kentucky.
Yeah, no, I agree. You're right. The biggest difference is Auburn hasn't had a bunch of great teams, but they've had some good teams over the years.
I think the Final Four team went up there, Jason, and got
beat by 26.
Got hammered
that, I think.
Yep, got hammered. Yep.
And you think about, the Auburn team, the 98-99 team.
Oh, yeah.
Was really good. And you go, man, that was a really good Auburn basketball team. And then you look back and you go, okay, well, that Kentucky team,
they were loaded.
Had Scott Padgett.
Oh, they were loaded.
Wayne Turner, Michael Bradley, Jamal McGlure, Tayshaun Prince, not to mention Saul Smith.
It's not like you were taking a team up there that was way dominant.
That's the thing. So you went up there and you faced a team that had 5 guys that made it to the NBA.
But this year, this Auburn team is much better talent-wise than this Kentucky team. I think that ends up playing out.
Yeah, it's the first time, like you said, that Final Four team that went up there, I don't think they were more talented than Kentucky. And then they got hot at the end of the year.
I just think Auburn hit a stretch where they got really, really hot.
Right. Yep. This is a better basketball team. It's the first time probably in my lifetime that I feel like Auburn goes to Kentucky. The 83 team was right there, but Barkley, but that Kentucky team had 2 guys that were first-round draft picks.
Right.
This is the first time in my lifetime that I feel like Auburn has a better basketball team from top to bottom than Kentucky does when you go to Rupp Arena. Will that make a difference? I think it does.
I do too.
I think it's a better matchup. I think Florida's the worst matchup for this Auburn team. I don't think this is a terrible matchup. Now, here's the other part. If they come out like Georgia did the other night against Florida, and they make 7 of their first 9 threes, and you look up and you're down 32-13, then all that goes out the window because it then becomes a different basketball game. But I don't expect that to happen. But if it does, then, hey, that's the thing about this league is on those nights, it don't matter how good you are, teams now are capable of beating you if they do those things.
Let's look at the standings. Jason, Auburn is 14-1, so you got 3 games remaining. You've got this Kentucky game tomorrow. You've got Texas A&M, and then you have, which just lost a terrible game at home to Vanderbilt. And then you finish with Alabama, which is, I mean, obviously still going to be extremely scary. They're since our game with them, they've hit another level offensively. This looks like the Alabama team that closed out last year with Mark Sears scoring and Youngblood finding himself and just really just pouring on a lot of points. I know they lost to Missouri, but they scored 98 in a game where they lost. So still, they put up a lot of points. You know they're going to come in to Auburn. They would love to repay the favor and have the split. But looking at a conference championship, Auburn has made it almost impossible. If they win this game tomorrow, there'll be 2 games left for everybody, Jason, and it will be nearly impossible for anybody at that point to do anything other than to have a share of the championship.
That's it. It's a 1 game right now. So an Auburn win or an Alabama loss, and Auburn is guaranteed at least a share. So that we know that already. And so we'll see if you can win it outright. And that's it. I think if you're Auburn, you win 2 more games and it's over with. And so we know that too. Texas A&M has struggled. They lost 3 in a row. They're going to lose 4 in a row because they're at Florida tomorrow.
Right.
But that will mean you go there like a quick turnaround next week. That's the thing about it. Auburn has to go back and play Texas A&M on a Tuesday night after being in Rupp Arena on Saturday.
Going to be a tough turnaround.
That's a tough turnaround for a game that will, in all likelihood, be the one final opportunity for Texas A&M to improve its seed line, because that would be a massive win for them. So that'll be a big game. But Alabama at Tennessee on Saturday, and then they got Florida coming to town on Wednesday night. So there's a lot of big basketball games left in this league when you have so many ranked teams. This will be the most difficult defensive team that Alabama's played. Alabama's defense has improved. I just don't know if Tennessee can score enough to beat that team, but they're going to make it ugly, and they're going to make it physical and do those things. So I think that's going to be a really interesting basketball game.
Yeah, if Tennessee were to beat them and Auburn were to win tomorrow, it's over. That's pretty much it. Of course, you want to finish strong, but you don't want to lose 2 games heading into the tournament. But you look at Alabama at 12-3, Florida 11-4. That Georgia loss really devastating to their chances to try to jump up here. But Jason, top to bottom, very, very good league outside of South Carolina and obviously LSU and Oklahoma down there toward the bottom. But either of those can beat you as well on any given night. But Auburn wants to finish right here strong, and they're going to have an opportunity. But that last 3 games for Alabama is brutal. I mean, Tennessee, Florida, and Auburn, and all of them are in the top. What, Alabama?
5.
Yeah, all of them are in the top 5. So
yeah, it's a rough stretch, and so you start looking at it, going, look, this is one thing I had somebody ask me in my mailbag today about talking about do you talk about winning to make sure you improve your seed line, all that stuff. And I'm like, no, it's Bruce Pearls talks about it's 1 game. And that's all that matters right now for Auburn is the next game.
Absolutely.
You've done everything you need to this season to be where you want to be at the end of the year. Now you don't have to worry about that. Now you just worry about the next basketball game. You don't have to worry about, well, we need to do this. This is not like for much of our lifetime growing up watching Auburn basketball, where this time of the year you're looking to see what you need to do to get on the bubble. That's Auburn basketball. If
right,
most of the best case scenarios, it was, boy, can you do enough to get an 8 or 9 seed?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you get a 10 seed? This team does not have to worry about that. No. I don't think they have to worry about being a 1 seed. I think now you worry about, and here's the
you just worry about finishing the deed that you've started. This has been a long marathon. You don't want to crap out at mile 25.
Yeah,
you want to get across the finish line,
and that means the next game. And so they've done a good job of processing that. They're mature veteran,
right?
And so because of that, they know that, hey, the only game that matters is the next one you play.
I think it's kind of the funny twist on this thing is the biggest knock on Auburn, and I guess anybody trying to attack this team is, they got a bunch of old guys. Well, look, I'll take if I'm going to get this result every year, I'll take a bunch of old guys. And look, I don't think it's affected them to this point.
No, and here's the thing about it. They're not the only team. Not the only one with a bunch of old guys. Kentucky's got a bunch of transfer guys that are older. Mark Sears is an older guy. Alabama's got a few older guys. It
works.
Here's
it works.
You look at the young teams, and they're not there. The young teams aren't in contention. It is the older teams. And, hey, Auburn's not doing anything illegal. This is the NCAA and everybody else. They've opened up the door. And if they're going to open up the door for me, then I'm going to go get veteran guys. And I think we're going to see Bruce Pearl do that again, because older, experienced guys, especially in the paint, that's how you win in college basketball.
Absolutely.
You're not winning with a bunch of young guys playing post defense against 22 and 20. You're not doing.
I mean, you look at Janai Broome coming out of high school versus where he is now, his size, and then you look at a kid coming out of high school, and he's got to go, even though he's highly ranked, he's got to go up against Janai Broome. I mean, the experience alone, and then the physicality is so much, the discrepancy is so huge. I mean, you can see why it's an advantage. So I think that's the trend. You saw that San Diego State team a few years ago when Alabama was making that run with Brandon Miller. San Diego State had a bunch of older guys, and they made it to a Final Four. So it looks like that's the new blueprint in college basketball.
That's it. I mean, it's really difficult to win with young, especially young, talented big guys. I mean, look at Rutgers. Rutgers going to have 2 lottery picks. They played really well, but you have to have more than that. Everybody says, one player can make a difference in basketball. It can, but you got to have a good roster already.
You have to have
one guy can't do it.
No, not at all. Not at all. All right, Auburn, Kentucky tomorrow. I think Auburn gets it done, Jason. I think they go up and get a win. They keep this train moving, and like Justin said, go Vols. If Tennessee can win that game, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Auburn will be SEC regular season champs, but you don't want that to take away from the fact that you got to go finish. Go win the next 2. If you win tomorrow, go win at A&M and go beat Alabama and sweep. You heard Coach Pearl say that. He goes, I don't want a split. A split's no good to me.
Yeah,
I want to win this series outright this year, and I think that's important.
Yeah. How you do those things, and hey, if you go to Nashville and win, fine. If you don't, fine. It's not going to impact you one bit either way, other than if you were to win it, you get another banner.
Right.
But
don't overextend yourself to win this.
100%. Yeah, that's the thing. If you get through this regular season, then oh well, whatever happens.
Do you think a couple more points on basketball? We'll move to baseball and all and finish up here, Jason. Janai Broome. I mean, look, I know Cooper Flagg is in the mix, but to me, he's the player of the year. He should get played, especially if Auburn finishes 17-1. Let's just play hypothetical here. If Auburn finishes this schedule 17-1 in league play, it's the hardest. Everybody said it. Every podcast, every person on ESPN, Jay Billis to whoever has said this version of the SEC is the toughest ever in history of basketball. If Auburn loses one game to a Florida team that was right there in the mix of winning the league and has the record they have, I mean, to me, Janai Broome is your player of the year.
Yeah, I think so too. I think what he's done, and to do it while playing through an injury where he obviously wasn't 100% or wasn't even close, but still continue to put up numbers. Yeah, I think the last couple of nights, and especially now, there's a couple of big stages still left in the regular season. Kentucky Saturday, Alabama next Saturday. You have those types of games on those stages again, and I think it's over with. I think those would cement it. So I think for him, I think it's still a battle. But I think you go out and do what you've done, and you do that against Kentucky and Alabama the next 2 weeks, and I think it'll be all over but the shout.
And I think that will be good enough to lock up a number 1 overall seed for Auburn if they finish this thing out. If they were not to, Jason, let's play that real quick, devil's advocate. If they were to lose 1 or maybe 2 games, because it's possible. I mean, It's 3 tough teams. Let's just say Auburn loses 2 games.
Yeah.
And they finish with 3 losses, but they still win the league, and maybe they tie Alabama. And let's just kind of throw that out there. Is Auburn still the number 1 overall seed?
I don't know. I think it'd be close. Duke's probably not going to lose again. Here's the thing about it.
But the schedules are so much different.
It is. But as long as you're 1 in the South
Right.
But to me, it doesn't matter. I mean, you'd like to be the overall number 1 seed, but as long as your road goes through Atlanta, to me, that's the most important thing.
Because if Duke's the number 1 overall seed, they're going to get the East.
They're going to go east because they'll go through Raleigh. Yes.
Correct.
So
So Auburn
that's
can
the
lock
thing.
down I think Auburn's probably already got the South locked down, Jason.
I think so too. And so that's to me, number 1 overall, whatever. To me, the most important thing is where you are, not what you're ranked. And so for me, if you go through Lexington and Atlanta, that's the most important thing.
Yep, it's about the path at that point. Okay, baseball out, big tournament in Texas at Arlington. Get things started with Ohio State, Jason.
Yeah, Ohio State Friday at 3:00, then Oregon State Saturday at 6, and then Baylor Sunday at 3. So they got kind of the early games, I guess, for a little bit of travel purposes. But yeah, it should be a good test for this team. You got a bunch of young guys that are playing. You get a chance to go on the road, play in a major league stadium, very different feel, playing 3 different teams where you have to kind of, be in almost a tournament mode. So I think it'll be a good opportunity for them to kind of see what they're like early in the season.
What stood out to you about this Auburn team to this point? I mean, obviously some of these freshmen are playing really well. I think Auburn knew it was going to be a young team. Ike Irish has picked up where he left off from a veteran standpoint. Just your thoughts so far.
Yeah, you got Cooper McMurray and Ike and some of those older guys. Eric Stowa transfers playing well. But I think it's Chase Fralick behind the plate, stepping in and really taking over the catcher role has been fun to watch as a true freshman. But Bub Terrell and Chris Rembert, true freshmen that are kind of everyday starters right now. And then, some of the bullpen pieces I think have been good. Parker Carlson, Jackson Sanders, another freshman. And then on the back end, Dylan Watts has been good. And then, Hayden Murphy is a kind of a closer role. So kind of finding some pieces now, what do you look like on the mound to start this weekend against these type of teams? That'll be one of the more things to watch for me.
All right, softball continues on. I mean, they're off to a great start, like you said on Monday, Jason. It's going to be a matter of continuing just to improve and get better as you head into what is a brutal schedule. I mean, everybody's schedule is brutal in softball, but Auburn especially starts off the front part of their schedule is pretty rough.
Yeah. When you get, I think I don't know where the latest rankings are, but when you get Texas and Florida, that's pretty brutal. When you start talking about back to back, let's see if I can find the latest rankings because I know Texas is 2, Florida's 3. Texas A&M is 5. So that's 3 of your first 4 series if you're Auburn. And then Mississippi State's 20.
It kind of feels like the way Auburn started in baseball last year. You remember those series last year?
Absolutely, yes. You look up and you play. Yeah. So just hold your head above water. That's the key. And so that's going to be the key for this Auburn softball team.
All right, let's close out with a little football talk. Spring practice just around the corner. I saw some jersey number changes. I know where Malcolm, obviously being from our hometown, he posted that he'll be changing his jersey number to number 4 going into spring. Anything, just overall preview thoughts of going into spring practice, and then maybe some recruiting nuggets if you got any out there.
Yes, the recruiting nuggets is just guys continuing to set up official visits and how how much earlier. We went from OVs to being in January to OVs being in, December because of the early signing period, to the last couple of years, OVs being in June. Well, now we got OVs in March.
I was going to say March and April.
June. Because now, I mean, Big Cat is April the 5th because everything is sped up. If you wait to, June to have Big Cat, then half of the guys you're recruiting may already be committed elsewhere. And so you're trying to get guys on campus as much as possible. Official visits, they're going to start in March. And so it's wild to think about guys are going to be signing in December, but it's almost like the basketball model where it's kind of that early signing period. In basketball, it's a year early. We feel like we're getting that way in football a little bit, but roster standpoint, not a ton. I mean, gains, weight gains, weight losses, some of those things. Keldrick Falk down to like 270, but I think from a pass rush perspective, I think that's what that's about. You got to be able to get to the quarterback. He did a good job of that last year. I think he trimmed down a little bit more. He's probably stronger than he's ever been, even though he weighs lighter. I think that'll be a pretty good combination for him.
Obviously, as we head into spring practice, we got a couple more comments that we'll get before we get off. As we head into spring practice, all eyes will be on the quarterback position, Jason, with Jackson Arnold and Deuce Knight coming in and seeing how they're going to go and compete. I don't think it's a given that anybody has the job. It's going to be fun to watch. I think, you bring in Deuce Knight with his ability and his physicality, and then you bring in Jackson Arnold transferring from Oklahoma, and the changeover in coordinators and things there kind of led to him leaving and looking for a new home, and he lands at Auburn looking for a new start. It kind of a lot of comparisons maybe between him and Joe Burrow. When Joe Burrow left Ohio State as like the third guy, but I know Jackson Arnold was the starter, but Joe Burrow was kind of pushed down the list, and then all of a sudden goes to LSU, and we all know what that ended up like. So Jackson Arnold looking for a rejuvenation. He was a 5-star plus guy coming out of high school. So the talent level there is unlimited. And you get Deuce Knight, who's a 5-star. I don't remember Auburn having a quarterback room that's going to be like this one going into spring.
Yeah, no, it's the talent level's there. Now it's how quickly can those guys get ready to roll? I think that's the biggest thing. How quickly can they they've already started doing some of the volunteer stuff to try to work on timing, all those things. And you got a later spring. So you basically got another month for them to continue to do some of those things. So, we'll see what it looks like. The talent level's there. We've heard good things about them throwing the football so far. Now, how does that factor in when you put the pads on and start running an offense and doing some of those things and start to get a feel for that in the spring?
All right, some questions real quick, or some comments. Justin said he thinks Bruce Pearl should be National Coach of the Year. Look, he's been shafted on some awards in the past that I thought were just ridiculous the day he didn't receive. And, if Auburn finishes this season that way, I think he is the National Coach of the Year.
It's going to be really hard because of like Louisville, though. It'd be really hard for a guy that takes over a team that won 4 games and makes the NCAA tournament. It's going to be hard because of some of those types of stories. And it's more difficult when people think you're already going to be good and then you're even better. Normally it goes to the turnaround story when you have those kind of awards.
And that's unfortunate a lot of times because that doesn't necessarily mean you are the best, but I definitely can see it. All right, Shaker Jack he says, do you think Sedarian signs with AU? And Shaker Jack, I'll start, Jason, and I'll let you kind of jump in. I definitely think Auburn is way in the mix. I see Sedarian regularly. I know he loves Auburn. Obviously, a great relationship with not just Malcolm, but a bunch of those guys.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of connections there. This thing comes down to NIL, and it comes down to a fit, and I think a fit has a lot to do with it. It's not just about money. I think some guys can get swayed and pulled just because of the money, but I think, and I'm speaking personally, I think Sedarian relationships and where he's going to be in proximity to his family is going to make a big difference in his where he ends up.
I agree. Awesome family. Love every time I see them. Makes me smile and laugh, and they're going to be a big part of things because he wants to stay close to them. And I mean, I think it's going to be Auburn, Alabama. I know there's other schools in the mix. I know there's Florida and others. I still think it's going to be, hey, I want them to be able to drive and see me play and it not be too far. So I still think it's going to come down to those 2 schools before it's all said and done. Who knows what happens? Yeah, I think Auburn is right there.
I totally agree. All right, Justin said, and this is for you, Jason. He said, I've learned to trust you and the staff when it comes to recruiting, but it looks like we may be taking off that last weekend available for official visits. Is that a concern?
No, I mean, you get all your official visits in. It doesn't matter when they happen. You get your numbers of official visits in, and I don't know anyone's taking one. They'll have a few weeks here or there, but they're fixing to start to hit the ground running here in March. And so, no, it's not a concern. Again, if you weren't getting guys in, taking official visits, and you were taking time off, it'd be one thing. Or if you weren't having, I've had concerns where, hey, we want to have a junior day and nobody shows up. That's a concern. That's not happening with this staff. So.
John, I wasn't saying Jackson Arnold was Joe Burrow. I was saying that it's Joe Burrow was down on the bench at Ohio State, and he transferred to LSU, and we saw what he did. He won a national championship, and the rest was history. I'm making a comparison of a guy not playing at a school or not working out, and then going to another school, and it ended up really good. So I didn't say he was Joe Burrow. Okay. Ed said, go read the athletic article about what an athletic department has to spend to be a winner. Look, we know this. I mean, we know teams have got to, in programs, got to spend money now, Jason. I don't think that's a secret at all.
No, I mean, that's the world we live in right now. And this one thing, does it guarantee that you're going to be really good? No, it doesn't. But it's much like recruiting. Recruiting a bunch of 4 and 5 stars doesn't guarantee that you're going to be successful, but you pretty much have to have those guys to have a chance to be successful. That's kind of the way it is right now. You don't have to have a roster that costs you $20 million take it back. Having a roster of $20 million doesn't mean you're going to go to the college football playoffs and win a national championship. But it's hard to do it if you don't have those guys now. And that's the way it is. Because, even the SMUs of the world, Indiana was the outlier last year. Indiana's a solid football team. They didn't have to play anybody in the Big Ten that was up the top. And you look at it, the teams that made it advanced and continue to kind of push for those are teams that are unfortunately spending a lot of money, and that's the way it goes.
Yep. Ohio State spent the money, and they happened to win the national championship. All right, Jason, real quick, from a quarterback standpoint, recruiting in this class, look, to me that position's changed more than any of them, because it's year to year. Yeah. You look at Jackson Arnold and Deuce Knight. We're going to be sitting here talking about this next year. One of these two is probably going to be gone. And so why would you go out? And this has been my philosophy since Auburn got Deuce Knight and Jackson Arnold in here. Why are you going to go out and spend a ton of money on a highly ranked high school quarterback this year to add to the mix when only one guy's going to play? I think you have to skip a year sometimes. And I'm not saying whoever Auburn takes in his class is going to be down the line and not going to be a competitive quarterback. I'm just saying, don't go. I mean, if you go get the top guy, that's fine. If he wants to come to Auburn, if he's the number one quarterback in the country, that's great. But don't go spend a boatload of money on a guy that may or may not be there in a year when you've already got two that you're trying to figure out if they're going to stay.
Yeah, no, it's roster management NFL style now. That's what it is. You look at the NFL model and go, okay, how much money should we spend on this position? So how much of a percentage of our budget goes to these positions? And you go, like, the third team quarterback in the NFL doesn't make $25 million.
Right.
Because you're like, oh, well, here's our guys. Now, again, it may change next year, and you may have to go get that guy next year. But you also go like, okay, what do we need? You need an offensive tackle. We need another wide receiver. You need these guys. Those positions become more valuable when you've already got two quarterbacks that you feel like, okay, here's our guys. If you miss, then you start over again next year. That's the way it works. But yeah, I agree. I don't think you can go, we're going to go 5-star and go bring in Jerry Curtis and pay another quarterback $3.5 million. Well, if you have, $10 million of your budget in 3 quarterbacks and only one of them's playing,
that's a waste.
It's not good business.
No, it's not good business.
And it is business, and that's what it is.
Well, you see the NFL teams, Jason, that screw it up, and it's detrimental. I mean, they go out and they load up, and they draft a guy that maybe wasn't a need position. They skipped a need position because they felt pressure to go get a name, and that happened to be a position that they didn't really need, and they waste a draft pick, and it kills them. I mean, it not only kills them for that year, it kills them for multiple years to try to recover. So, I think you said it best. It's roster management now at the college level more than anything. Well, Jason, appreciate you hanging on with me this morning and being with us. And we'll give you the lunch show off today.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And really appreciate all that you do. And we'll catch up with you on Monday next week. But kind of give everybody, again, a recap of how they can catch up with you every day.
Yep. Check us out, auburnundercover.com, part of 24/7 network. Find us on YouTube at Auburn Undercover, videos, press conferences, all those things. You can find it all there as well. So come find us.
Jason, appreciate you, brother.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Have a good day. Okay, buddy.
All right.
That's Jason Caldwell with Auburn Undercover, and always glad to have Jason with us. He'll be back with us on Monday. Wade and I will be on the lunch show today, so we're looking forward to it. So get your comments and questions in there. Make sure you tune us in at lunch. You can watch us on TV, but you can watch us obviously right here on YouTube and on Facebook. Our subscribers way over 600 now. Thing has taken off, and we appreciate all of you out there that tune us in each and every day. Gave Faith the day off as she's on the road traveling, so she'll be back next week, and looking forward to having her back with me on the podcast. But also Jason will be back on Monday as well. But again, Auburn with a big game tomorrow against Kentucky. Looking forward to that one. See if Auburn can break this curse. Been since 1988 since they were able to get a win in Rupp Arena. So we'll be looking forward to that. Also want to go back and thank some of our sponsors. Obviously, we talked about Sensor Green and Scout Program Management and Bunkers. Also want to thank Sure Shot for all of their support of the Auburn Blitz podcast. Couldn't do it without our partners here. Sure Shot Outdoors, where I get all of my outdoor apparel, all of my guns, all of my fire, all of my ammunition. It all comes from Sure Shot, and they sell, trade, and new and used firearms. You can call them 256-329-0080, or better yet, just get on up 280 and check them out here in Alexander City. And man, they have a great supply of hunting apparel for whatever season. I know deer season just ended, so they've got some stuff on sale. And then you can come in and all the latest turkey gear. All you turkey hunters out there, it's one of my favorite seasons. So go pick up all your apparel there at Sure Shot in Alexander City. And then Oliver Ross, if you're looking to host a party, a function, and you need a bartender and a bartending service, they will handle it for you. Trained, professional, and licensed bartenders that come out. You'll be the talk of your patrons. Everybody will be bragging about your party if you hire Oliver Ross to manage it. So Oliver Ross, they do a lot of things for Auburn University, frats and sororities and official functions of Auburn. I know they've been the provider for Buckmasters in Montgomery and the Big Expo for several years. So call on Oliver Ross and they'll take care of you there. So again, guys, I really appreciate all of you that tune us in. And yeah, I do. I even like you Bammers, John. You're exactly right. Absolutely. So everybody have a great weekend. Again, Wade and I will be on at noon for the Auburn Blitz show. So make sure you tune us in there. All right. Everybody have a great weekend out there. Be safe and War Eagle.